أنا سأتحقق وقعت
لترشيح العماد ميشيل عون.
المعارضة السورية هي بتحدد من يمثلها.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Yumna Nofel, and these are today's top stories. Emergency response teams work on reopening mountain roads that were blocked by piles of snow as coastal areas witness clearer weather and a further drop in temperatures. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says he hopes for clarity within 48 hours on talks aimed at ending Syria's 5-year war, which had been due to start today. And Iranian President Hassan Rouhani arrives in Italy at the start of a European visit where he is expected to showcase Iran as a potential investment power. Good afternoon to all our viewers. Thank you for tuning in. We begin today with the snowstorm that has been lashing Lebanon since Friday night, forcing the closure of 2 ports in the southern city of Tyre and prompting the education minister to order the closure of all public and private schools as well as technical institutes. The health minister has also ordered a closure of daycares across the country. In the afternoon, the storm forced the collapse of a barrier wall in Akkar's coastal town of Tel Hayat, and residents were urging authorities to intervene before seawater enters their seaside houses. The Red Cross, meanwhile, announced rescuing 13 people who had been stranded in the snow in the Akkar area of Mishmish. Accumulating snow has also cut off the vital Dahr al-Baida road between the Bakar region and the rest of the country, according to the Traffic Management Center. The dialogue between Hezbollah and the Future Movement is useless, according to a Future Bloc lawmaker. He said this on the eve of a new round of talks between the rival parties, expected to start tomorrow. There's no point for a dialogue between the two parties to continue because it is no longer productive, in particular after Hezbollah's position to impede the presidential election and release terrorists, according to him, Michel Smeha. Those are the words of Ahmed Fatfat. He was talking and making remarks to Voice of Lebanon radio, continuing and stressing that the representatives of the two parties will hold a new meeting on Monday night under the sponsorship of Speaker Nabih Berri at his residence in Ain al-Tini. Now, tensions surged between Hezbollah and the Future Movement after the Saudi-Iranian spat over the execution of Shia preacher Nimr al-Nimr. According to Fatfat, Iran does not want the election of a president for reasons linked to the region, and Hezbollah doesn't want a head of state over regional and local pretexts. It's acting as if it's the only party governing the country. Lebanese Forces Chief Sami Jaja is clashing with Speaker Nabih Berri over the latter's sarcastic statement regarding Hezbollah's efforts to push the election of its March 8 ally MP Michel Aoun for presidency. Asked about Hezbollah's efforts to persuade its March 8 allies to press for the election of Aoun, Berri was quoted by his visitors as saying, "What is Hezbollah required to do? Do they want to put a gun, a rifle, or a rocket at the heads of the Future Movement leader Saad Hariri as well as the Socialist Party leader Walid Jumblat?" Berri was said to make them elect a certain candidate. He said things cannot go on this way. The relationship between us and allies does not go this way. The speaker reiterated his position that last week's reconciliation between Aoun and Jaja in Marab would not help but put an end to the presidential vacuum. His remarks come as Jaja began fetching support to his recent decision to nominate Aoun against Fanji's bid, which is supported by Hariri. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says he hopes for clarity within 48 hours on talks aimed at ending Syria's 5-year war, which had been due to start today. Speaking in Laos, America's top diplomat said he had held a flurry of conversations with key parties, including his French, Turkish, Russian, and Saudi counterparts, to try to get the talks to the starting line. Representatives of the Syrian government and opposition had been set to meet in Geneva on Monday as part of a UN-endorsed 18-month peace plan. But a dispute over whether armed groups should be able to sit at the table to represent the opposition appears poised to delay the talks. Kerry says he has also spoken to the UN Special Envoy to Syria, Staffan de Mistura, to make sure everybody is on the same page ahead of the negotiations. The latest round of Syria peace talks scheduled to begin today in Geneva is likely to be delayed as no more details about the conference have been known. According to the Syrian government, it was prepared for the talks, but the opposition delegation has yet to come to an agreement on who should be sent to the negotiation table, which is universally considered in the country as the main cause of the delay. It is believed that the talks seem to be more necessary than ever before, as the global situations, in particular in the Middle East region, are teeming with changes and facing economic crises. Politicians think the best way to solve political differences should be peace talks. To map out Syria's future in a peaceful way not only serves the interests of the Syrian people, but also those of the EU and all countries in the Arab world. On the contrary, the extremists in an unstable Syria will put the world at high risk. Coming up next, ISIS group releases a video purporting to show 9 jihadists involved in the November Paris attacks that killed 130. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching the 1620 o'clock news here on Future Television. A Saudi-led coalition strike killed a senior Yemeni judge and 7 members of his family at the home in the rebel-controlled capital of Sana'a in Yemen. According to his relatives, Judge Yahya Muhammad Rubaid, his son, 3 women and 3 children were killed when a missile hit their home. His nephew Ahmad Muhammad told reporters, speaking in front of the debris of the destroyed house in central Sana'a, Muhammad said the attack was carried out overnight by coalition jets, which have been pounding rebels almost daily since March of last year. He said his uncle has presided over a court specialized in terrorism cases, which tries suspects accused of links to al-Qaeda. The Iran-backed Houthi rebels have controlled Sana'a since September of 2014, when they swept down from their northern highlands unopposed before expanding across other parts of the country. They have been met by resistance from local pro-government militiamen and loyalist troops backed by coalition weapons and forces. Daesh has released a video purporting to show 9 jihadists involved in the November Paris attacks that killed 130 people, in which they are threatening coalition countries, including Britain. The video posted on jihadist website is entitled "Kill Wherever You Find Them" and shows 4 Belgians, 3 French citizens and 2 Iraqis said to be responsible for the attacks. It also depicts the 9 carrying out atrocities before the rampage in Paris, including beheading and shooting people described as hostages. In the video, the jihadists speaking in French and in Arabic say their message is addressed to all the countries taking part in the coalition that has been fighting ISIS in Syria and Iraq since September 2014. Daesh group has also honed the ability to launch global attacks and is set to focus more on Europe following the Paris massacre, according to the chief of the EU police agency Europol. Rob Wainwright told a news conference that the so-called Islamic State has developed a new combat-style capability to carry out a campaign of large-scale terrorist attacks on a global stage with a particular focus in Europe. So-called Daesh has a willingness and a capability to carry out further attacks in Europe, and of course all national authorities are working to prevent that from happening. Wainwright was unveiling the findings of a new Europol report on changes in how the jihadist group operates, coinciding with the launch of the agency's new counter-terrorism center in The Hague. Daesh claims responsibility for the November 13 Paris attacks, releasing the video purporting to show 9 of them in which they threaten coalition countries. Iran's President Hassan Rouhani arrives in Rome in his first official trip abroad since the lifting of sanctions against his country. Italian President Sergio Mattarella greeted Rouhani at the presidential palace in central Rome, where the 2 leaders are expected to hold brief talks. An Italian government source said shortly before the meeting that Italian companies will sign commercial agreements with Iran worth between $16.2 billion and $18.4 during Rouhani's visit. Leading a 120-strong delegation that includes Iranian entrepreneurs as well as the oil and gas minister and other government officials, Rouhani will spend 2.5 days in the Italian capital before traveling to Paris. He is also considered a pragmatist, elected in 2013 on a platform to reduce Iran's isolation, championed the deal under which Iran curbed its nuclear program in return for the lifting of U.S., EU, and UN sanctions this month. Egyptians are marking the 5th anniversary of the uprising that toppled Hosni Mubarak amid tight security and a warning from the new regime that demonstrations will not be tolerated. Police deployed on streets in Cairo, including near the iconic Tahrir Square, the epicenter of the 18-day anti-Mubarak revolt, to head off potential protests against President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's government. Security was also beefed up around police stations, which were targeted by protesters during the 2011 uprising and in recent years have been attacked by militants from a growing jihadist insurgency. A long-running security crackdown intensified in the run-up to the anniversary, with police rounding up dozens of activists and raiding hundreds of homes in recent weeks. Activist hangouts include cafes, cultural centers, and a publishing house near Tahrir Square were also raided or shut down. Critics have accused Sisi of restoring Mubarak's autocratic rule and of betraying the hopes of those who took the streets 5 years ago. And in the United States, extensive damage to the roofs of various buildings emerged from a massive blizzard that paralyzed much of the U.S. East Coast. Several constructions and buildings could not sustain the weight of snow dumped over the weekend. The blizzard was unofficially known as Winter Storm Jonas, and it left at least 20 dead in several states. 13 people were killed in weather-related car crashes in Arkansas, North Carolina, Kentucky, Ohio, Tennessee, and Virginia. One person also died in Maryland and 3 in New York while shoveling snow. 2 of them died of hypothermia and 1 from carbon monoxide poisoning. Now in Maryland, Pennsylvania, a number of roofs and airplane hangars, grocery stores and barns collapsed because of snow, including one of the industrial building in Belcamp, Maryland. And in Washington, D.C., citizens could be seen going up on luges and skis and enjoying the snow, as well as having snow fights. Forecasters say over 76.2 centimeters of snow have blanketed the area. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Emergency response teams work on reopening mountain roads that were blocked by piles of snow as coastal areas witness clear weather but further drop in temperatures. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says he hopes for clarity within the next 48 hours on talks aimed at ending Syria's 5-year war, which had been due to start. And Iranian President Hassan Rouhani arrives in Italy at the start of an EU visit, where he's expected to showcase Iran as a potential investment power. Those are your Monday headlines live on Future Television. Catch us again tomorrow for all the latest. Have a good night.
أنا زيادة حققت وقعت
لترشيح العماد ميشيل عون.
المعارضة السورية هي اللي تحدد من يمثلها.